Sergio Perez's lap 1 crash will hit Red Bull's budget extremely hard and unexpectedly, as the Mexican driver suffered an unlucky fate at the Monaco Grand Prix. Although it wasn't his fault, this might also hurt his chances at staying in Red Bull, but this is only the least of Red Bull's worries currently. Sergio Perez's involvement in a collision with Kevin Magnussen during the Monaco Grand Prix may incur expenses exceeding £2 million for Red Bull, prompting concerns about its impact on their budget cap. Perez's car was rendered unusable during the early stages of the Monte Carlo race when Magnussen's Haas struck it from behind. Fortunately, both drivers emerged unscathed from the incident, which also prematurely ended Nico Hulkenberg's race, Magnussen's teammate. Following the collision, both Perez and Magnussen attributed blame to each other, yet neither faced penalties. Helmut Marko, a long-standing advisor to Red Bull, expressed astonishment at the stewards' handling of the situation while disclosing the potential financial implications for the team. Am I surprised Magnussen wasn't penalized? I'm actually surprised by how quickly the stewards managed to put the incident behind them, Marko told Sky Germany. But first of all, it was very dangerous. And second of all, the damage to the RB20 is 2 or 3 million. This is a big handicap for us with the budget cap. The heavy impact left Perez a little bit shaky, but unhurt, and he had absolutely no time for Magnussen's version of events. "If you saw my onboard, at no point do you see Kevin's car," he said. "Not even close to being alongside me. You can see that the wall is just getting closer and closer. To keep it flat out, there was only one way out of it. It was either contact with my car or the barrier. There was just simply no room for both cars, and at some point he had to realize that." The trigger for the first lap accident was Magnussen heading into a gap that was always closing. However, as Perez did appear to be aware Magnussen was there, he could have played the percentage better by ensuring enough space was left. As he said, he expected Magnussen to back out, and there's good reasons why Magnussen should have done, given he was heading down a cul-de-sac. But you can't always count on that, and given Perez was already likely doomed to a pointless race from a lowly starting position, instead of risking having the huge parts-sapping accident he did have, it would have been prudent to have left a little more space. It's a difficult part of the track to judge, so that doesn't make it Perez's fault, but his decision-making process could have been better and potentially ensured the accident never happened. Yes, Magnussen could have done the same, as his car positioning was a massive gamble, but just because someone else is risking a collision doesn't mean you don't have the chance to mitigate the risk with your own choices. Perez entered the season under pressure after a poor performance last year, missing Q3 8 times and finishing 290 points behind his teammate Max Verstappen. Despite this, the Mexican driver began the campaign positively, securing second-place finishes in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia as Red Bull continued to dominate. That form made a strong case for renewal, even with outgoing Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz unexpectedly being on the market for 2025. It was no surprise that discussions began, with Red Bull favoring a one-year deal, and that Perez was optimistic of locking something down quickly. However, Perez has struggled to maintain this momentum as the competition has tightened. He finished 8th at Imola and suffered a disastrous Q1 elimination in Monaco, and with Ferrari and McLaren winning races in the past month, team principal Christian Horner has urged Perez to recover from his latest setback to bolster Red Bull's title aspirations. This weekend's been pretty brutal for him. Yeah, we need to make sure that we have got both cars up there scoring points, because we cannot dismiss the threat of Ferrari and McLaren in both championships. Horner had contended that he was unconcerned with Perez's showing the previous weekend and denied that it would spiral into a repeat of his drop in form last term. Asked what Red Bull can do to help Perez recapture his best level amid another poor outing in Monaco, Horner replied, "Checo's first 6 races, he was very strong. He was qualifying on the front row and finishing 2nd and 3rd and scoring very well. We just need to get him back into that position of confidence and not to see a dip." This period of perceived Red Bull vulnerability may have been exaggerated by certain circumstances and track favorability, as Verstappen has also faced challenges. Both drivers have been on the back foot, but while Verstappen has managed to win a race and finish 2nd and 6th in others, Perez has struggled more. His average starting position dropped from 3.6 in the first 5 Grand Prix to 10.3 in the last 3, The Monaco DNF complicates calculating his average finishing position, but even optimistically assuming he could have finished in the top 10, his average would still drop from 2.8 to 7.3. Perez's discomfort was evident in Monaco when, despite being 5th fastest in final practice and only 0.35 seconds slower than Verstappen, he complained that the car was not performing well and needed significant work for qualifying. This negative energy and lack of confidence seemed to carry into a tense, error-filled Q1 session, where Perez was again 0.35 seconds slower than Verstappen. On a short lap like Monaco, that gap is significant enough to affect progression, leading to Perez's elimination. It must be troubling for Perez to struggle so much on street circuits, which have previously been his strength and where Red Bull's inherent weaknesses have allowed him to perform well compared to Verstappen. 2 years ago, Perez won in Monaco after a controversial qualifying incident that angered Verstappen's camp, leading to a new 2-year contract announcement immediately after. History may be repeating itself, as there is an expectation among various parties, some directly connected to the team, some influenced by its decisions, that Perez will be re-signed soon. However, Horner stated that the Monaco weekend had not influenced Red Bull's decision on Perez and that we'll make a decision in the fullness of time. A final contract may not yet be signed, but many in the paddock are confident that Red Bull has already made up its mind about Perez's future. Plans are being made on the assumption that Perez's continued tenure at Red Bull will be confirmed between now and the Canadian GP in 2 weekends' time. This renewal, however, would come despite Perez's recent form, not because of it. Perez's slump last season took a long time to correct, and if a similar situation occurs now, Red Bull will face significant consequences. Earlier this year, the Red Bull hierarchy jokingly suggested that Perez's good form was motivated by the prospect of contract renewal. Given there seems to be no urgent pressure to decide now, committing to Perez at this time seems unusual. This situation raises the question, is Red Bull in real danger of losing the F1 2024 title? The competitive reasons to keep Perez are weaker now than they were a few weeks ago, implying that Red Bull bosses believe the arguments for replacing him are even weaker. Carlos Sainz remains a strong alternative, but represents a more challenging teammate for Verstappen, with known tensions from their Toro Rosso days that Red Bull is cautious about reviving. Red Bull would only dismiss Sainz if it is confident Verstappen is staying, despite various comments from his father Jos and Mercedes boss Toto Wolff hinting at a potential move away. Red Bull has decided that as long as Verstappen is there, bringing Sainz in is not an option. Red Bull also has no interest in promoting Yuki Tsunoda, despite his excellent form with AlphaTauri. They lack confidence in Daniel Ricciardo's readiness to return to the senior team and believe reserve driver Liam Lawson has not yet earned an RB drive, let alone a seat in the senior team. This leaves Perez, the incumbent driver, as the continuity option despite not being the best option. Red Bull doesn't need Perez to be the best. They need him to be good enough. That has always been the requirement for Verstappen's teammate. Perez showed at the start of the season what he is capable of when Red Bull had a car advantage, but there are still doubts about whether his contributions can be significant and consistent enough when multiple rival teams are competitive. Perhaps a return to more conventional tracks and circumstances will bring out the best in Red Bull and help Perez regain his early 2024 form. Red Bull needs both of its drivers to be on their best form this season to win both championships based on how McLaren and Ferrari are performing of late, unless Red Bull has something up its sleeve to re-establish the kind of car advantage we saw in 2023. But even then, Perez went missing at times, often when Verstappen was winning with ease. More Red Bull victories, more Verstappen victories are much more likely than not this season. A consistently convincing Perez support act cannot be so easily assumed with or without a new deal. Do you think Red Bull will suffer due to Perez's slump? Let us know down in the comments below, and we will see you in the next video.